A mechanic bought a weak dragon at an auction. What it did when he held it stunned everyone. Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands as he walked through the crowded halls of Nexus Prime Orbital Station. After another long day fixing broken ships and malfunctioning equipment, he needed a break. His friend Jake had mentioned an exotic creature auction happening in the station's grand hall. Marcus was not interested in buying anything. He just wanted to see what wealthy collectors from across the galaxy considered valuable. The auction hall was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and plush seats were arranged in neat rows. Aliens of every species filled the room. There were tall Vexari with their silver skin, short grumbling traders with their multiple arms, and elegant Celestians who seemed to float rather than walk. Marcus found a seat in the back corner where the common workers sat. The auctioneer, a professional Celestian named Velmora, began presenting creatures one by one. First came a pair of rainbow-scaled serpents that could produce healing venom. They sold for 2 million credits. Then, a magnificent thunderbird whose wings created lightning storms. It went for 5 million credits. The wealthy collectors in the front rows raised their paddles eagerly, competing with each other. Marcus watched in amazement. These prices were more than he would earn in 10 lifetimes. He worked hard every day to afford his tiny apartment and basic meals. This world of luxury felt strange to him. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Velmora announced, we have items from the Vexther breeding facility. Inside were various dragons, each one more beautiful than the last. There was a crimson dragon with flames dancing along its spine that sold for 8 million credits. A sapphire dragon with wings like frozen waterfalls went for 12 million. The crowd gasped and cheered with each presentation. Then Marcus noticed something that made his heart sink. In the corner of the stage, almost hidden behind the other cages, sat a small transport box. Inside was a dragon hatchling, but it looked nothing like the others. Its scales were dull gray instead of brilliant colors. Its wings trembled weakly. The creature could barely lift its head. It looked sick and sad. This final item, Velmora said dismissively, is defective stock from an unsuccessful breeding attempt. We will start the bidding at 500 credits just to clear inventory. Marcus stared at the small creature. Even from the back of the hall, he could see it shivering. The dragon's eyes were barely open, and it seemed to be giving up on life. Something deep inside Marcus's chest tightened. He had seen that look before, in abandoned animals back on Earth, in forgotten equipment left to rust, in things that people no longer valued. Going once, Velmora said, sounding bored. Marcus stood up. His hand moved before his brain could stop it. 500 credits, he called out. The entire hall turned to look at him. Wealthy collectors stared in confusion. Why would anyone want that worthless creature? Velmora looked surprised but quickly recovered her professional composure. We have 500 credits from the gentleman in the back. Going once, going twice sold. But something deeper told him it was right. After completing the transaction, a worker brought the transport box to him. Marcus knelt down beside it. Through the transparent panel, he could see the small dragon more clearly now. It was barely the size of a cat, its breathing shallow and labored. Poor thing, Marcus whispered. Nobody should be alone like this. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. You're safe now. Then something extraordinary happened. The dragon's dull scales began to shimmer. A soft glow spread from where Marcus held it, like sunrise breaking through darkness. The gray color transformed into subtle shades of copper and gold. The dragon's eyes opened fully for the first time, revealing bright amber irises that seemed to contain tiny flames. The glow intensified, casting warm light across Marcus's face and hands. The dragon made a small sound, something between a purr and a musical note. Its trembling stopped. Its breathing became steady and strong. The auction hall had gone completely silent. Every person in the room stared in absolute shock. Even Velmora stood frozen on the stage, her professional composure shattered. "Impossible," someone whispered. The dragon nuzzled against Marcus's chest, its scales now gleaming with inner light. It felt warm and alive in his arms. Marcus could feel a gentle vibration, like a heartbeat synchronizing with his own. A Vexari collector stood up from his seat. "What did you do? How did you trigger that response?" The dragon's glow pulsed brighter, as if confirming his words. In that moment, surrounded by wealthy collectors who valued creatures for their price tags, Marcus realized he had found something truly priceless, a connection that no amount of money could buy. Marcus carried the glowing dragon through the corridors of Nexus Prime Station. People stopped and stared as he passed. The small creature remained nestled against his chest, its copper and gold scales shimmering with soft light. Marcus could feel warmth radiating from it, and somehow he sensed contentment coming from the dragon. It felt safe for the first time in its short life. His apartment was small and cluttered with mechanical parts and repair tools. It was not much, but it was home. Marcus cleared a space on his workbench and created a soft nest using clean towels and an old heating pad. He set the temperature to warm, not hot. "There you go, little one," Marcus said gently as he placed the dragon in the nest. "You need to rest and get strong." "You don't like being alone, do you?" Marcus asked softly. He pulled up a chair and sat beside the workbench. The dragon watched him with intelligent amber eyes. Marcus could not explain it, but he felt like the creature understood him on a deeper level than words. Over the next few days, Marcus cared for the dragon with dedication. He researched dragon nutrition and bought special foods from the station's exotic pet suppliers. He fed the dragon small portions of mineral-rich meat and crystal supplements. Each meal made the dragon stronger. Its scales grew more vibrant. Its wings, which had been thin and weak, began to fill out with healthy membrane. Marcus named her Ember because of the flame-like glow in her eyes and the warmth she radiated. Ember responded to her name immediately, chirping happily whenever Marcus said it. On the third day, something remarkable happened. Marcus was repairing a broken gravity generator in his apartment when Ember suddenly became alert. She stood up in her nest and began humming, a low, resonant sound that vibrated through the air. The pitch changed, rising and falling in a specific pattern. Marcus paused his work. "What is it, Ember?" Hidden behind the casing, he found a cracked circuit board that his diagnostic tools had missed. It would have failed catastrophically within hours. "How did you know?" Marcus asked in amazement. Ember chirped proudly and returned to her nest. Over the following days, Marcus discovered that Ember could sense problems in mechanical and electronic systems. She hummed at different frequencies depending on what type of failure she detected. It was like having a living diagnostic scanner. Word spread quickly through the station about Marcus and his miracle dragon. His small repair shop began receiving more customers, curious to see Ember and impressed by her abilities. Marcus's business improved significantly. He could afford better tools and equipment now. But success brought unwanted attention. Wealthy collectors began visiting Marcus's shop, not for repairs, but to make offers. A Celestian merchant offered 50,000 credits for Ember. A Grumbling trader offered 100,000. A human corporate executive offered 500,000 credits and a luxurious apartment. Marcus refused every single offer. "She's not for sale," he told them firmly. "Ember is my friend, not merchandise." They could not understand why a simple mechanic would refuse such wealth. Others thought Marcus was holding out for higher prices, but Marcus did not care about their opinions. He had learned something important during his time with Ember. Through their bond, he felt her emotions. When collectors looked at her with greedy eyes, Ember felt afraid. When they discussed her value in credits, she felt sad. But when Marcus worked beside her, talking to her gently and sharing his meals, Ember felt happy and safe. One evening, while Marcus was closing his shop, an elderly Vexari scholar named Zyantar visited. Unlike the collectors, Zyantar's eyes showed wisdom and curiosity, not greed. "Young human," Zyantar said respectfully, "may I ask you some questions about your dragon?" "The auction called her defective breeding stock," Marcus replied. Zyantar shook his head slowly. "That dragon is not defective. She is a celestial dragon, one of the rarest and most ancient bloodlines in the galaxy. Most people believe they are extinct. The isolation and neglect in breeding facilities kills them. That is why they are so rare now. Traders like Vexther keep them in cages, not understanding what they truly need." "Yes," Zyantar confirmed, "but you saved her with your compassion. When you held her at the auction, you offered genuine care without expecting anything in return. Celestial dragons can sense pure intentions. She chose you as her companion, and that bond brought her back to life. Not because of her monetary value, but because you share a connection that most beings never experience. Guard this bond carefully, young human. There are those who will try to take her from you." She had grown stronger and larger over the past weeks. Her wings could now fold and unfold properly. Her scales gleamed like polished metal in firelight. "I won't let anyone separate us," Marcus promised her. "We're a team now." Marcus was working on a ship's engine while Ember hummed nearby, detecting a faulty power relay. The door opened with an aggressive force that made them both look up. A tall, imposing figure entered the shop. He was a Vexari with dark purple skin and cold silver eyes. His expensive suit and multiple rings showed his wealth. Behind him stood two security guards in full armor. "You are Marcus Chen?" the Vexari asked, his voice sharp and commanding. "Yes," Marcus replied carefully, instinctively moving closer to Ember. "How can I help you?" The one who kept celestial dragons in isolation, not understanding what they needed to survive. "Everything in this shop belongs to me," Marcus said calmly. "I bought it legally." Through their bond, Marcus felt her terror. She remembered this person. She remembered cold cages and endless loneliness. "That celestial dragon was sold without my authorization," Vexther stated. "The auction house had no right to sell her. She is breeding stock worth billions of credits. I am here to reclaim my property." "That creature is one of the last celestial dragons in existence. Her genetic value alone makes her priceless. You have no idea what you possess." "A friend who was dying because people like you kept her locked up and alone. You can surrender the dragon peacefully, or I will take legal action that will crush you financially." The documents looked official: breeding records, genetic certificates, and ownership papers, all bearing Vexther's name and the breeding facility's seal. "The auction was conducted by a former employee who had no authority," Vexther explained. "Station security is already investigating the matter. I will have the dragon back within days, whether you cooperate or not." He thought about Ember's transformation when he first held her. He remembered her joy when she helped him with repairs. He felt her fear now, pressing against his mind through their bond. "I need time to review these documents with a legal advisor," Marcus said. "You have 24 hours, Vexther replied coldly. "After that, station security will remove the dragon by force if necessary." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "A word of advice, mechanic. Do not become attached to things beyond your station in life. It only leads to disappointment." "I promise." Within an hour, Zyantar arrived at the shop with another person, a human lawyer named Sarah Rodriguez who specialized in exotic creature rights. Sarah reviewed the documents while Zyantar examined Ember carefully. "The documents are legitimate," Sarah said grimly. "Vexther does own the breeding facility, and these genetic records match Ember's bloodline. Are celestial dragons sentient enough to have rights of their own? Can they choose their companions?" The problem is that most of them died before anyone could document this properly. It would be similar to kidnapping rather than property reclamation. We need to prove she makes choices and communicates with you. Through their bond, he asked her a silent question. She responded with determination, her glow strengthening. She wanted to stay with him. She was willing to fight. Set up the hearing, Marcus said firmly. Ember and I will prove our bond. Others sided with Vexther, arguing that property rights and contracts must be respected. The station's media covered the story extensively. Mechanic challenges billion-credit trader over dragon rights, read one headline. Can dragons choose their destiny? Asked another. Marcus received messages of support from ordinary workers throughout the station. They saw themselves in his struggle, common people standing up against the powerful and wealthy. But he also received threats from Vexther's associates, warning him to surrender before he lost everything. Through it all, Ember stayed by his side. Her presence gave Marcus strength. Their bond grew deeper with each passing day. She helped him with repairs during the day and slept curled against him at night. Whatever happened in the hearing, Marcus knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would never give up on her. The hearing took place in Nexus Prime's largest courtroom. Marcus had never seen so many people gathered in one place. Representatives from dozens of species filled every seat. News cameras lined the walls. This case had captured the attention of the entire station and beyond. Judge Curavel, a wise and ancient Celestian known for fair rulings, presided over the proceedings. Her silver robes flowed like water as she took her position at the bench. Marcus sat at one table with Sarah Rodriguez, his lawyer, and Zyantar as his expert witness. Ember rested in a specially designed carrier beside him, her glow steady but subdued. She could feel the tension in the room. At the opposite table sat Vexther with 3 expensive lawyers and 2 genetic experts from prestigious universities. Their presentation materials filled several data screens. This hearing will determine the legal status of the celestial dragon known as Ember, Judge Curavel announced. Mr. Vexther claims ownership through breeding rights. Mr. Chen claims that Ember has chosen him as her companion and has the right to make that choice. We will hear both arguments. Your Honor, this case is simple, Davidson began. My client operates a legal breeding facility. He owns the genetic rights to all creatures produced there. The dragon in question was sold illegally by an unauthorized employee. We have documentation proving ownership, breeding records, and genetic certificates. This is a straightforward property dispute. He called expert witnesses who testified about dragon genetics and breeding programs. Celestial dragons are valuable creatures, one expert stated, but they are creatures nonetheless. Treating them as sentient beings with rights would disrupt the entire exotic animal industry. When it was Sarah's turn to present, she stood with quiet determination. Your Honor, this case is about more than property rights, Sarah began. It is about recognizing sentience where it exists. Celestial dragons are not ordinary creatures. They form empathic bonds with chosen companions. Without these bonds, they die. That is not the behavior of simple animals. These dragons nearly went extinct because traders kept them in isolation, Zyantar testified. They did not understand that celestial dragons need emotional connections to survive. When Marcus held Ember at the auction, she was dying from loneliness. His compassion saved her life. She chose him, Your Honor. That choice should matter. I have heard the arguments on both sides. However, legal precedent and expert testimony alone cannot resolve this matter. I propose a test. If Ember is truly bonded to Marcus Chen, she will display abilities that captive dragons cannot achieve, Judge Curavel explained. Mr. Chen, I understand that Ember assists you with mechanical repairs. Is this correct? She can sense problems in systems before they fail. If Marcus and Ember can identify and guide repairs through their bond, it will demonstrate a level of cooperation that suggests genuine sentience and choice. Even expert engineers had failed. Marcus looked at Ember. Through their bond, he asked if she was ready. Ember chirped confidently and her glow brightened. She trusted him completely. The entire hearing moved to the station's environmental control center. Engineers had set up observation screens so everyone could watch. The malfunctioning system controlled air circulation for 3 entire sectors of the station. If it failed completely, thousands of people would be in danger. Marcus and Ember stood before the massive system. It was a complex network of processors, conduits, and mechanical components spanning an entire room. Diagnostic screens showed dozens of potential problems, but none identified the root cause. Marcus knelt beside Ember. "Okay, partner. Let's show them what we can do." Marcus followed her carefully, his years of repair experience combining with her diagnostic abilities. They moved like dancers, perfectly synchronized. Ember would hum and point with her nose. Marcus would investigate and make notes. After 20 minutes, they had identified a cascade failure pattern that the diagnostic computers had missed. A tiny crack in a coolant line was causing temperature fluctuations. Those fluctuations were triggering sensor errors. The sensor errors were confusing the main computer, which then made adjustment decisions based on false data. "The primary problem is here," Marcus explained to the watching engineers, pointing to the coolant line. "But it has created secondary failures in these 3 processors and this sensor array. Everything needs to be fixed in the correct sequence." "He's right," the chief engineer announced. "This is exactly the problem. We have been looking at the symptoms instead of the cause." Within an hour, all readings returned to normal. The system ran smoothly for the first time in weeks. The courtroom erupted in amazed conversation. Even Vexther's lawyers looked stunned. But Judge Kuravel raised her hand for silence. "Impressive, but the final test remains. Ember must demonstrate clear choice." Through their bond, he felt Ember's certainty, but he did not want to influence her choice. This had to be completely her decision. Ember walked slowly forward, her amber eyes moving between the 2 men. She paused in the center, and the entire room held its breath. Then Ember walked directly to Marcus without hesitation. She sat beside him and looked up at his face. Her glow intensified, filling the room with warm light. And then something happened that no one expected. Ember began to sing. The sound was crystalline and beautiful, like bells made of starlight. It resonated through the courtroom, touching something deep in every person's heart. Some people began to cry without knowing why. Zyantar gasped, "The song of true bonding." Celestial dragons only sing when they have found their lifelong companion. I have read about it in ancient texts, but I never thought I would hear it. When it finally faded, the courtroom remained silent, moved beyond words. Judge Kuravel wiped tears from her eyes. "I have my answer." The courtroom remained completely silent, waiting for her decision. "I have witnessed something extraordinary today," the judge began, her voice filled with emotion. "I have seen a bond that transcends ownership, that speaks to something deeper than property rights. I have heard a song that ancient texts describe as the rarest expression of true companionship." She turned to face Vexther directly. "Mr. Vexther, your documents prove that you funded Ember's creation, but they do not prove that you own her soul. The evidence presented today demonstrates beyond doubt that celestial dragons are sentient beings capable of making meaningful choices." Vexther's face darkened with anger, but he remained silent. "Ember has chosen Marcus Chen as her lifelong companion," Judge Kuravel continued. "That choice, expressed through the song of true bonding, carries more weight than any breeding certificate. I rule in favor of Marcus Chen. Ember will remain with her chosen companion." The courtroom exploded with cheers and applause. People from every species stood and celebrated. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as he knelt and embraced Ember. Through their bond, he felt her joy and relief washing over him like warm sunlight. Furthermore, the judge added, raising her voice to be heard over the celebration, I am establishing a legal precedent today. Bonded dragons and any other creatures capable of forming empathic connections have the right to choose their companions. They are not property to be bought and sold against their will. Sarah Rodriguez smiled with satisfaction. This was even better than they had hoped. The ruling would change laws across multiple systems. Vexthor stood abruptly. This is outrageous. I have invested millions in breeding programs. You cannot simply... I can and I have, Judge Kuravel interrupted firmly. Additionally, I am ordering an investigation into your breeding facility. If celestial dragons require emotional bonds to survive, keeping them in isolation constitutes mistreatment. Station authorities will inspect your operations within the week. Vexthor's lawyers quickly escorted him from the courtroom before he could say anything that might make his situation worse. As he left, he shot Marcus one final look of pure hatred. But Marcus no longer felt intimidated. He had faced the powerful trader and won, not through wealth or connections, but through love and compassion. The days following the hearing were transformative. News of the case spread across the galaxy through communication networks. Marcus and Ember became symbols of a larger movement, the recognition that intelligent creatures deserved rights and dignity. Station authorities inspected Vexthor's breeding facility and found conditions even worse than expected. Dragons kept in tiny, isolated cages, some barely alive, all suffering from loneliness. The facility was shut down immediately. The surviving dragons were placed with carefully selected companions who understood their needs. Marcus received messages from across the galaxy. Dragon owners who had been treating their companions as status symbols began to change their approach. They learned that celestial dragons and many other bonded creatures needed emotional connection more than luxury or control. One message came from a young, grumbling girl whose family owned a celestial dragon that had been growing weaker. After learning about empathic bonds, she started spending hours each day with the dragon, talking to it, playing with it, sharing her feelings. Within weeks, the dragon recovered and began to glow with health. The girl's grateful message made Marcus smile. Ziontar visited Marcus's shop regularly, documenting Ember's growth and abilities for academic research. His papers on celestial dragon behavior became required reading in xenobiology programs across multiple universities. You have done more than save one dragon, Ziontar told Marcus one afternoon. You have saved an entire species by showing the galaxy what they truly need. Marcus's repair business thrived beyond his expectations. People came from all over the station to meet Ember and to hire the legendary Mechanic Dragon team. But Marcus never let success change him. He still lived in his small apartment, still worked with his own hands, still treated every customer with respect regardless of their wealth or status. Ember grew larger and stronger with each passing month. Her wingspan reached impressive proportions, and her scales gleamed like polished copper and gold. She could now lift heavy equipment with ease, and her diagnostic abilities had expanded to include computer systems and even biological sensors. But the most remarkable change was in their bond. Marcus and Ember no longer needed words to communicate. A shared glance was enough. A feeling transmitted through their connection could convey complex ideas. They worked together with such precision that watching them became a form of art. One evening, 6 months after the hearing, Marcus sat in his shop with Ember resting beside him. A young human couple entered nervously, carrying a small transport box. "Excuse me, Mr. Chen," the woman said hesitantly. "We heard about what you did for Ember. We bought a dragon at an auction last week and it seems sick. We don't know how to help it." Marcus smiled gently. "Let me see." Inside the box was a small dragon with pale blue scales, trembling and weak. Marcus recognized the signs immediately, another celestial dragon suffering from isolation. "This dragon needs a bond," Marcus explained to the couple. "It needs someone to care for it, to spend time with it, to offer genuine affection. Are you willing to do that?" The couple looked at each other and nodded. "We want to try. Can you teach us?" Over the next hour, Marcus taught them everything he had learned. How to hold the dragon gently, how to speak with kindness, how to be patient and attentive. When the young man carefully lifted the dragon from its box and held it close, offering warmth and compassion, the dragon's scales began to shimmer with new light. The couple gasped in wonder. The woman started crying happy tears. Their dragon had chosen them just as Ember had chosen Marcus. "Thank you," the man said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for showing us what really matters." After they left, Marcus turned to Ember. "Looks like we're going to be teaching a lot of people, partner." Ember chirped in agreement, her glow pulsing with contentment. Marcus thought back to that day at the auction when he had bought a dying dragon that nobody wanted. He had spent 500 credits and gained something beyond price. He had found friendship, purpose, and proof that the most valuable things in life cannot be measured in money. In a galaxy obsessed with profit and status, Marcus and Ember stood as living reminders of a simple truth, that compassion can heal even the most broken spirits, that genuine bonds are stronger than any contract, and that sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones that others overlook. Marcus returned to his work, with Ember humming softly beside him, and smiled. This was exactly where he belonged,